Please get ready for a dictation of transcription number 320 and 321 from Sir Kailash Chandra magazine. 5 seconds. Start. Sir, as honorable members are well aware, the production of coffee is of great importance not only to the coffee consumers but also to the national interest of the country. It is a fact that not only the internal consumption of coffee has increased but also Indian coffee is loved for its quality in outside countries. Though it is not an export commodity bringing in foreign exchange in very large dimensions, it does bring in a fairly good income to the growers, and it is in our interest to develop the coffee industry. With that view, we have brought forward this measure, and we are making principally two structural alterations or amendments in the original scheme of the Coffee Board. Taking the amendments sought to be made by this bill serially, I would first invite attention to Clause 6 of the bill, which deals with the structure of the new board. There is also the provision for the appointment of the chairman of the board by the government. This has been the subject matter of some controversy, as honorable members are quite aware, and I would like to deal with that matter quite briefly. I shall also be happy to give my reactions to such observations as may be made during the course of the debate. It has been considered in certain quarters that government, in introducing this amendment, is trying to do something unjust to the growers. Firstly, the original act contained a provision for the election of the growers' organizations by panels. That was the understanding underlying the amending bill. This is one sore point, and I might start with that observation from now. Really speaking, government could have absolutely no interest in affecting the growers adversely. We cannot kill the goose that lays the golden egg. If we kill the industry, no one could hope to have a development in this industry. No doubt sometimes things happened in the past and they made government come to the conclusion that the Coffee Board at that time did not do all in its power to see to it that the prices were under control. We have to strike a sort of golden mean. It is not that only the growers' interests are supreme, but I am quite sure that whereas the growers' interests have to be important, the interests of the consumers have also to be taken into account. Take the Tariff Commission, for instance. It goes into the cost of production of the indigenous production and also finds out the import price of an imported product. If the import value of an imported article is Rs 30 and the cost of production of a local article is Rs 20, the Commission tries to cover the gap of Rs 10 and add a little more so that the indigenous product may not work with an initial disadvantage vis-a-vis the imported product. That is what they do. So, in the case of productive industry, it goes without saying that the margin to the grower should be important and should be a sufficient incentive, but then we have to look at other factors also. Take the case of silk, for instance. Silk is a relevant example. Supposing we stop all imports, the growers might get Rs 58 or Rs 60 per pound, whereas the Tariff Commission price would be around about 32 per pound, giving a margin for the handicap sustained by local production. If prices soar high, they have a deleterious effect on industry, though for the time being, persons in charge of particular concerns may profit by it today and tomorrow. This is not beneficial from the long-range point of view, and in as much as we want this coffee industry to develop in the long run into a very prosperous industry, not only to satisfy the internal needs but also to satisfy our exports as much as possible, we must take effective and proper steps. Just as we must see to it that the grower gets a proper margin, it is equally important to see that the growers' prices are not such as would result in prejudice to the particular industry in the long run. In the near future, it may be disadvantageous for us to do that. During the current year, we could find it possible to increase the quota because production was higher than before, and we want to go ahead farther than we did so far in increasing production. Maybe if production increases, we might be able to do it, and we would be very happy to give us as great a quota as possible because it naturally helps to the industry. But we have to look after the internal consumer also. We cannot neglect the interests of the internal consumer. We believe also in coffee spreading to other parts. Recently, in Parliament House, we have seen how popular coffee is growing day by day, not only hot but also cold. There should be further expansion in the activities of the coffee board. Sir, this is a bill which naturally commends itself for acceptance by all right-thinking men. The principle of recall is one of the fundamental principles of unfettered democracy, and it has been explained by facts and figures by the honorable mover of this bill that this principle should be incorporated in the constitution of our country. He has not expressed any hurry. So he has said that he is prepared to accept the verdict of the people and this bill be circulated for eliciting public opinion. As far as public opinion is concerned, we know that it is predominantly in favor of such an article being incorporated in our constitution because the public think that they are the masters of the land. But unfortunately, owing to certain constitutional difficulties, they do not have their say in matters of importance. Sir, our constitution naturally is not the final word in constitution thinking or constitution making. We are all familiar with the circumstances in which this constitution was framed, and when we talk about the framers of the constitution, we do not have certain abstract personalities or ideas in our mind. We had a definite set of circumstances and a definite set of individuals who took upon themselves the framing of what is called the Indian Constitution today. In the course of 5 years of the working of this constitution, it has been found necessary, maybe for different reasons, that this constitution had to be amended and changed. From the press, it appears that even the government of India now is thinking of amending Article 31. Therefore, experience goes to show that this constitution has got to be altered and changed, and so here is a bill, the provision of which should find a place in the form of fundamental law as an article in the constitution. Sir, we have heard the speeches made from the Congress party. I can understand their anxiety when we bring up this measure because if the provision for recall had been there in the constitution, the Congress benches would have been denuded of many honorable gentlemen who sit there today. The treasury benches would have been by now emptied if the provision of the article was there. We know all this thing, and it is quite understandable why these gentlemen, the great gentlemen who go by the Preventive Detention Act, are opposing this measure. Now, sir, we are not making it a party issue. We are prepared to be recalled by the people. We would consider it a great honor to resign from Parliament if the people demand of us that course of action, and I can tell you, as far as our party is concerned, we are not even bothered about the constitution provision, whether it is there or not. If, for instance, the people of Calcutta, the majority of the people of Calcutta were to demand my resignation from this Rajya Sabha, I shall certainly bow my head to their will and resign from here, whether there is a provision in the constitution or not. Similarly, I can tell you of the members of the other house that they will resign their seats if their constituents who returned them in the elections demanded that resignation. Recall, as far as we are concerned, is an article of faith. Whether there is a provision in the Constitution or not, we will submit to the will of the people because their will is supreme and sovereign, and I think that nothing is to be more revered and respected than the will of the people. But the point is not that of what we feel or that we do not feel. The point is how you are dealing with the laws and with the Constitution. That is the main point. The American Constitution required a certain number of amendments, and the Bill of Rights there came by way of amendments. 15 or 16 amendments were adopted in quick succession. Now, our Constitution too requires many more amendments in the right direction. This is one of the amendments that have been proposed. Now look at this parliament. I am dealing with parliament at the moment, not with the state legislatures. Look at this parliament and appraise its representative character. The gentlemen who sit there are honorable gentlemen, but they cannot claim that they have been returned to this position of authority with the majority votes in the country. Stop.